Hey yo, this is my second time recording this. The first run through was like an hour long, and I did not want to recreate that, and I didn't think I should upload that just because it would not that there's any reason not to really, but I don't think you want to listen to me ramble for an hour about a team that's probably B tier at best, um, and it's pretty straightforward kind of all the way through. So. I'm back here again. We're doing it take two. I recorded the first one in the morning, and now this is after work, and I'm recording it again. Hopefully, gonna be shorter. Um, but yeah, let's just dive into this. This is national decks. So there are a lot of mons such as mythicals that are available that are typically not in a VGC draft or format. So it's kind of fun for coaches like me who have only really ever played VGC and only have messed around with singles. Like I think I've had a little foray into it like one time within the VBL on like a fun little tournament put together by Jace. So mythicals are allowed. Obviously, this is including mons that are typically not in Sword and Shield as well. So like we have access to pretty much the entire decks, minus all the most of the restricted mons that are banned, and Magirna, who's a mythical that is banned. But I'm excited to be back. I haven't done drafts since season 13 when I did my challenge with Steve, where we would team build for each other, and I was involved with helping Daddy prep to a certain extent last season just for fun. So. I'm always kind of around. I'm always like watching the matches and stuff, but I haven't actually officially done a draft in. I think the season 13 ended at the end of September last year, so it's been like a good 8 months or so. But I'm happy to be back. I do love draft. I can rarely stay away for long, so I'm excited to be here, and let's dive into it. So this was the board. I had picked 17 out of 32. All 32 coaches that are participating were drafting off of the same board, unlike in the past where, for the most part, we typically had two different conferences of 16 with their own separate draft boards. We were all vying for mons on the same board. So this was the state of the board before my pick at pick 17. I really only wanted one mon. I mean, spoiler alert, it was in the 20-point tier, and it did make it to me, thankfully. But I mean, had it been taken, there were plenty of other mons at this point in the draft that I would have been happy to take. I'm typically I don't really have many preferences in terms of like what first pick I have. A lot of times I tend to have more preferences towards the middle of the draft with like value picks. So I was kind of just waiting to see what made it to me, and then I picked from there. So, as you can see, I picked Tapu Lele at the 20-point tier. This was the mon that I wanted. I don't know if it's going to stack up to some of the other mons in the higher tier. Obviously, Melmetal, for example. Looking back at this page, Melmetal at 24. May have been a better pick, or like Chiyu for offensive damage output, or like the Urshifu's who can just hit through protect with their physical contact stab moves. Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Mawile also would have been great picks. Even Marshadow would have been a good pick just for how strong it is, and what Spectral Thief can do. But I kind of wanted to. I tend to like to spread my points around and make wide teams. Is kind of historically how I naturally tend to draft. So a 20-point mon that has a lot of flexibility in terms of like how I can build it, also providing psychic terrain support. I kind of wanted to see if I could, make psychic terrain work a lot of times. Plus telepathy can be fun. So this is my fairy type and my psychic offensive type to make use of Psychic Surge. So I built a lot of the team around Tapu Lele being my top tier, but I did not necessarily build the team around relying heavily on Psychic Surge. Psychic Surge is definitely nice to have, but I do not think that I'm necessarily going to run that every week. So, I don't know, good special attacker, good special bulk, acceptable physical bulk, and a solid speed stat. So, I think getting a fairy type, like a strong fairy type, is pretty good. in draft, so I was happy to grab this first round. And as everybody knows, what goes well with Fairy Stab, that would be Ground Stab. Between the two, there are no resistances. So, I mean, excluding, like, I don't know, a flying fairy type. Well, actually, it doesn't resist fairy, technically, but if it's like a steel type with levitate, technically has a resistance to it. But there are not that many of those. But yeah, anyway, I wanted a good ground stab to go along with the fairy stab. Also, a mon, with ground types comes earthquake stab, which is good with telepathy, or flying types in general. So for good spread damage. So like if I wanted to, I could run Iron Treads with next to telepathy Tapu Lele. I think that would be fun, and that would make for a pretty strong stab duo combo right out of the gate. So I kind of dove into, I mean, this is round 2 and I'm already diving down into the 9-point tier. I wanted Iron Treads because it is technically the fastest ground type that does not have to lock itself into a move. And by that I mean there are faster ground types, but they would require a Scarf to outspeed Iron Treads, and that forces the limitation of locking themselves into a move, versus Iron Treads with booster energy. I can be faster than all of them without having the limitation of locking myself into a move. I'm also fairly comfortable with Iron Treads. I used it a few seasons ago at this point. It's probably like a year ago, or maybe even a year and a half, 2 years ago. But I've used it before, so I kind of know how it works. And I figured it would be a pretty good pair with Tapu Lele, given the offensive and defensive profile of this mon. And it gives me some really fast speed control with booster energy and like Bulldoze or Rock Tomb. I don't know if it gets Thunder Wave, but either way, it's got some access to speed control, and it's just has a pretty good defensive typing in comparison with what Lele requires for defensive synergy, and also just a good offensive damage output between like Steel Roller and High Horsepower. Also a fast Iron Defense Body Presser, which I thought would be pretty good to have on the squad. And then next up, Pure Speed. So I did want to draft a little bit of synergy with Psychic Terrain. I didn't super build my team around it being necessary to team comps, but I did want to have, if I'm going to draft a Psychic Surge mon, then I would like to have some sort of, I want to take advantage of that being on the field. And there is no faster mon than Regieleki. So if I don't have to worry about like Fake Out, I can invest, at Regieleki I can invest a different item other than Covert Cloak, because I mean, if you look at Regieleki, it's so fast. Odds are that if a team has Fake Out, they're probably just going to fake it out. So with Psychic Terrain up, I don't have to worry about Fake Out at all. I can kind of just click buttons, or even like Prankster T-Wave being an electric type. There's no Prankster in Psychic Terrain, and then if I don't run Psychic Terrain, there's no Prankster T-Wave that I have to deal with either. But I figured I'd grab the fastest mon in the game, or all of the games, I should say. And I drafted this in my first ever season of VBL, like 3 years ago at this point, which was season 6. And I went 2-5 in that season. There was a lot I had to learn the hard way, as most coaches do when they, join a league for the first time, especially draft, if it's their first foray into draft. You tend to learn a lot in the first season, and I certainly did. Regieleki is a mon that I think is fairly straightforward. It's mostly running electric or normal moves, or screens, and it is very easy to kind of wall it, especially with Terra, because you could just Terra ground, and Regieleki pretty much can't do anything about it. So I am just going to have to prep and play well to make sure that I don't get pigeonholed into a loss versus like a Terra ground in the end game, and I only have Regieleki left or something. So pretty straightforward mon, really fast, good speed control, pretty good damage with Transistor, even post nerf. And for 12 points, I feel like it was a fairly good investment. Electric Stab is usually always good to have. So next up is Drift Blim. Again, I wanted to draft. I didn't want to rely on Psychic Terrain, but I also wanted to make use of the terrain while I have it. I mean, if I have it, I might as well use it, right? So Drift Blim for 8 points, I think is pretty solid all the way down there, because I can, Psychic Seed, Unburden, double my speed, and have fast Tailwind. And with that HP stat, you know, I can invest in its, I mean, its defenses are horrendous, but with that HP stat, I can, you know, EVs, I can EV into bulk if needed, and it will be able to tank a lot of hits just by virtue of having a huge HP pool. And then also pretty decent, you know, attack and special attack stat. Not anything amazing, but it'll deal some damage, which is good enough. And if I want to get real crazy, I can run like, I don't know, Flame Orb, Flare Boost, and say that 10 times fast, and double the damage output of its special attacks. Which I don't know if I've ever even seen anybody use that before. And I may not even use that, because Unburden is going to be very good on this team. But it is pretty much like an all-in-one speed control mon, you know, with Trick Room and Fast Tailwind with Unburden, and also access to like Icy Wind. So I think this mon is going to be a great, you know, utility mon on this squad. Also is a ground immunity for Iron Treads, so yet another option for clicking Earthquake spread damage into the opposing team. This one I could run in Psychic Terrain. If I have it up, I can just bring it out, Booster Energy or Choice Band, Life Orb or something, and just click Earthquake, and then, you know, have Driftbloom in there and click moves next to it. So I'm pretty happy about this pickup for 8 points and Unburden and all of the options that it has. I think it'll be fun to use. It's got a pretty wide move pool, and it can be EV'd a ton of different ways. So I'm pretty excited to use this mon. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then, Mythicals. I was talking at the beginning of the video of, you know, Mythicals. Us VGCers typically don't get to, I say that like I play all the time. I don't play all the time. but I don't get the chance to use Mythicals ever. So I figured I might as well draft one, right? So I originally wanted Victini in round 2, which would have been my Mythical, a V-Create, Stab, Monster, and Expanding Force user all in one. It was drafted along with Indeedee or Indeedee female, and by a coach in my division. So I'm going to have to face it instead of having it, so that'll be fun. But the alternative is going to be Armarouge, who is also in the 8-point tier, but was drafted by another coach in my division. Which has since been dropped, and is now a free agent on the board. But I decided not to pick it up. I want to stick it out with Hoopa. I figured, its speed stat at 70 is not great. It's got a great stat line for attack, special attack, and special defense. And even 80 HP is not bad. Its defense isn't good. If you're going to KO this thing in one hit, it's probably going to be on the defensive side, physical defensive side. But, and Magician's not an amazing ability. If I have an item that doesn't go away, Magician's irrelevant, unless I get like knocked off. But unless I tear a knockoff, will just kill me. So I feel like Magician's probably not going to be super relevant a lot of the time. But I still want to give it Mythical a try. Hoopa's a great stat line for 8 points. I can always tear out of its weaknesses, even though, you know, that's fairly predictable. I feel like that's going to be expected a lot of the time. But I don't know. With this, you know, 150 base special attack, access to Expanding Force, and some form of speed control, I feel like Hoopa can do pretty well. And I don't necessarily have to run Expanding Force either. It has its unique move, Hyperspace Hole, which is a 80 base power psychic move that does not check accuracy, and I believe it breaks through Protect. So I think this mon could be pretty good, given good piloting. So am I the good pilot to make that happen? That's questionable. I'm not so sure. But that remains to be seen. This thing also has access to Trick Room, so it can provide speed control if necessary. So I don't know. It's not the mon that I originally thought I was going to end up drafting, but it's the one that ended up on the squad, and I'm excited to use it regardless. Yippee! Next up is the fire type replacement. So Armarouge kind of got split up into 2 different mons, which was Hoopa and now Darmanitan. All 3 of which are in the 8-point tier. Big surprise. There's a lot of value in that tier, in my opinion. But Darmanitan literally does one thing, and it does one thing really well, and that is click Flare Blitz and destroy things. So it's a pretty straightforward mon. I wanted a fire type. I think I've had seasons in the past, or a season in the past, where I did not have a natural fire type, and I feel like I usually miss having just a a natural fire type on the team. So I was looking for replacements for Armarouge when it got drafted during the draft, and Darmanitan is my pseudo Victini replacement. V-Create has a base power of 270 when including stab. Sheer Force Flare Blitz on Darmanitan with stab has like a 234 base power. So is it quite as good as, you know, V-Create? No, but it's pretty dang close. So this is gonna be my big Unga Bunga hit Flare Blitz with Sheer Force button and just delete mons unless you have a resisted Terra. So the 95 speed tier is pretty good. It's the same as Tapu Lele, so that kind of gives me a little bit of speed, like a speed block there of 2 mons that have the same speed tier. So if you're gonna EV to outspeed something, it's pretty easy to outspeed both of them. And this thing has pretty bad defensive stats, pretty good HP stat. So like it can tank a hit probably, unless it's like a really strong, super effective move. Like this thing's not tanking a wave crash at all, or like a life orb boosted liquidation or anything. But it should, in theory, survive a hit and at least get a big Flare Blitz off and maybe take an Elko, you know, now and again. So, yeah, I think this mon, kind of like Hoopa, is probably going to rely on good positioning to get its moves off. If I can protect it, it can deal a lot of damage. And we'll just see if I can make that happen. And Zen mode, I mean, I can't not mention Zen mode, but would it be funny to run Zen mode one week and try to make it happen? I absolutely think so, but I don't know how realistic it is to actually pull it off, because I gotta be at half health or less to transition into Zen mode, and it's a special attacker and its stats like completely swap. So like I'd have to run like physical and probably special moves on it just in case I don't get into Zen mode. So it's a very weird ability, and I feel like most of the time it's completely irrelevant and not used. But maybe I'll see if there's a week I can make it happen. No promises. Next up, we got Mega Gyarados. So kind of like Mythicals in VGC. I never played in a season of VGC where Megas were legal. That was before I played VGC. So I wanted to try a Mega out. At this point in the draft, I didn't really have any Megas in mind. Like the Mega that I probably would have considered was Mega Metagross, and that went round 2. It was picked up immediately by Sukaba. Understandably so, that mon looks busted. So, I mean, round 7 at this point, like, a lot of, like, the really good Megas were already taken. But Mega Gyarados was still sitting on the board. I don't have the most faith in regular Gyarados in draft. I think it's a good utility mon. Intimidate is always great to have. It's got a good stat line, good bulk, good attack. I just don't think it has like enough, you know, high base power moves to really take advantage of its good attack. Like a close combat from like a 125 base attack mon like Mienshao. God forbid I'm on a video where I don't mention Mienshao, but Mega Gyarados has, you know, I think 125, or regular Gyarados has 125 base attack, but like it doesn't have any super high base power stab moves. I think it gets like Waterfall and Crunch as like it's, or well, I guess Crunch for when it's Mega, but you understand the point, right? Like it doesn't really get any good flying moves, unless you like Terra Flying Terra Blast, but like Waterfall is like its best water move. So Mega Gyarados kind of falls into that same category where it doesn't really have super high base power stat moves to take advantage of. That huge 155 base attack stat, but I mean, with that attack stat, it's still going to deal a lot of damage. And then between Intimidate and, you know, good bulk all around, it's a good mon to stick around on the field. Maybe if I get like a Dragon Dance off, it can kind of cover for its weaker base power moves. But I don't know. I wanted to draft a Mega. This Mega had good typing for my team at this point. I desperately needed some dark resists and a ghost resist. Oh god, that my team was so ghost weak at this point that a dark type was a must-have. So I don't know. Do I think Mega Gyarados is going to be a star on the team? I don't really think so. Most of my drafted teams never really have one standout star a lot of the time because I typically draft wide. So I think Mega Gyarados will probably come some weeks, do its job. Maybe I'll get a win with it, or maybe it'll just, you know, get smoked by close combat after I Mega. So I don't know. I don't know. I think this mon is going to be fun to use. I'll be happy to have it on the squad and give it a shot just because, I've never used a Mega before. But I don't necessarily think... I'm not reaching for the stars with this one. I think it's more so just a solid pick for 12 points and a good stat line with good utility and, hits decently hard. So I think this will be a good mon on the squad, but I'm not expecting it to carry the world. All right, next up we got Mousehold. So I obviously had quite a bit. I had 33 points before this pick with, let's see, 8, 9, 10, 4 mons left. So I'm like, almost 2/3. I'm just before 2/3 of the way through the draft at this point, and I still have a good number of points left. I wanted to help. Well, first of all, I wanted some redirection, and second of all, I wanted a way to help my horrendous ghost weakness, which is, Mega Gyarados can't carry the whole thing by itself, right? So, like, looking at my team, you're like, oh, I just bring a ghost type. I click ghost all day. Good ghost stab, like Choice Band, Ghost Stab, Specs, Ghost Stab, whatever you got. You can just click ghosts on my team, and it's like, oh, easy dub. What can I do about it? Sure, I can Terra Normal or Terra Dark on one mon, but, like, and then, I can Mega Gyarados to become a Dark type. But, like, outside that, it's like, Ghost Stab's pretty reliable. So, having a normal type redirector that you can't ignore with like safety goggles or Terra Grass is good. I think that maybe this is kind of like I'm a little over reliant on Mousehold preventing ghosts from just steamrolling my team. But I'm hoping it's less of an issue than maybe it seems like it may be. I mean, Mousehold has a great speed stat. It has very middling stats in every other category, but I mean, Friend Guard is a super useful ability to help reduce damage on the partner, even if I don't click follow me. And then, I could run Cheek Pouch. It's probably the least commonly used ability on this mon. But like if I ran Citrus Berry, I could, get some HP back and then get some more HP back with Cheek Pouch to make it a really good follow me user that kind of sticks around for more than just a turn. Assuming it lives a double up, which it probably would get hit by a double up and faint. Unless I redirect a ghost move or something. But, and then obviously there's Technician, Population Bomb, which, is an Oko machine on to a ton of mons. Unless there's a resistance or there's a mon with like good bulk or whatever. Or if the opponent runs Rocky Helmet or Terra Ghost. So there's a lot of counterplay to Mousehold. It's got a couple options that I think people typically prep for, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of prep around Mousehold in the coming weeks. But I do think having a mon that could either serve a role as a mon that takes KOs or as a mon that can help get my team going and protect, key mons that I think can help me win a matchup. I think it's good to have this mon on the squad. So I was eyeballing this or Nihilego. After I drafted this, Poppin immediately picked up in the same round Nihilego after this. So I'm happy one of us, picked up the silly jellyfish or parasite or whatever the heck that Ultra Beast is. It looks really good on a squad. I think it could have also been good on my squad next to like Iron Treads or something. You could Terra Flying, Nihilego, and then, more Earthquake spam, for Iron Treads in that scenario. But ultimately I decided on Mousehold in the 15-point tier instead. Just because I felt like it synergized with my team and kind of filled some holes better. But I think it'll be fun. I hope it doesn't carry too much weight on its shoulders for my team. And next up, I grabbed Terrakion. I did not have a fighting type or a rock type at this point. Not that I necessarily needed either one or both, but I think it's nice having type diversity on a team so you can kind of be flexible and have natural stab. Or just natural defensive typings as well. Onto teams, and after I drafted Mousehold and Terrakion was still on the board, and I was like, you know what, Rock's a good offensive type, Fighting's a good offensive type. Fighting is also a nice dark resist in addition to Gyarados to help cover for the dark weakness on my Drifblim and Hoopa. And Justified is a fun ability, so like if I do swap into a dark stab attack, or a dark attack in general, it doesn't have to be stab, I'll get an attack boost, as well as tanking the hit pretty well, because it's got, pretty good bulk with 90 pretty much across the board. And then, adding +1 to that 129 base attack stats, pretty good. It's going to hit like a truck, especially with close combat. So Plus, it pairs well with Mousehold for like a beat-up Justified strategy. So I was happy to be able to grab this later in the draft. As I mentioned earlier, I kind of grabbed value fairly early on, just where I thought I would need it, and then figured I would spend my, my bigger budget at this point than most other coaches in the draft on kind of like adding mons to the squad that I thought would, either do big damage or help support the rest of the squad that I had already drafted. So I don't know. Terrakion's got a pretty good speed stat. It's got a good stat line across the board. Even without the beat up Justified strategy, this mon will do good damage and hit pretty hard, and probably tank hits when it needs to. So also it has access to taunt and coaching, which are really good support moves, and pretty much every mon on my squad would be happy to receive like a coaching boost. And having access to taunt is really good for stopping Trick Room, which at this point, if you hadn't noticed, Hoopa is my slowest mon at base 70. So what could I possibly do about that with 7 points remaining? I don't know. Draft a 1-pointer that has 5 base speed. Munchlax, my beloved. I have not used Munchlax before. I imagine it functions a lot like Snorlax, just slower and, I was going to say less bulky, but with Eviolite, it's probably more especially bulky. And maybe like equivalently physically bulky. I mean, that defense stat is not good, but I don't know. Between Eviolite and its HP, stat, I think it can tank hits pretty well. That 50% boost to defense, especially if I like EV into its defensive stat, is gonna, it's gonna tank hits pretty well. And it's already got pretty good special defense to pair with that HP. So this mon will help tank hits when necessarily. It's got 2 great abilities in Thick Fat and Gluttony. Pickup is technically usable, but I don't think I'll be using it. I'd be surprised unless I got some really tricky strategy that I come up with. I feel like it'll mostly be Thick Fat or Gluttony, depending if I want to run like a Belly Drum set and with a berry for Gluttony, or like Thick Fat just to be able to have resistance to ice and fire moves. But I don't know, this granted, you can't have one mon as a Trick Romancer, because your opponents will look at your team, see that, and be like, oh, okay, Munchlax is your Trick Romancer, so if I can just deal with Munchlax, Trick Room wins anyway. So I fully expect to see Trick Room quite a bit against this team, considering this. But I don't know, I think for 1 point, Munchlax is great value. It has the Gen 1 move pool, so it's got a ton of options. So I expect if I am truly expecting Trick Room into my team on certain weeks, I don't necessarily expect it every week, but I do think it will be part of the opposing coach's thought process when looking at my speed tiers. I think Munchlax will hopefully help provide some sort of answer or get out of jail, not necessarily free card, if I am really concerned about Trick Room. I think Munchlax can help. So naturally, with my remaining 6 points, I drafted another mon who is pretty good in Trick Room with base 30 speed, just to kind of provide another Trick Room option, because obviously I am expecting to have to deal with Trick Room into my team quite a bit, so I wanted another mon that I could actually run in Trick Room if necessary. And it's another Gluttony Thick Fat mon, so back-to-back Trick Room Thick Fat Gluttony mons. So I don't know, Grass Dragon, I didn't have either of these typings yet. I figured it'd be nice to have both of them all combined in one. Appleton's also a mon that I've used in the past, just like Regieleki, so I think I'll feel comfortable with it. It's a good Iron Defense Body Presser, or like Leech Seed stall into finishing the game with like Recover or whatever if I want to end game that way. Also has access to like Draco Meteor or Apple Acid to drop special defense and kind of like scale into a KO against mons that are typically harder to break through. So I don't know. This thing's got pretty solid stats all around, and a slower mon that I wanted to make sure I have access to kind of round out some sort of Trick Romancer, which I think is pretty good value for 6 points. I feel like I kind of like lasered in on getting a lot of good point values, or like what I thought was good value for the points, especially like if you look at my points on the board here. I've got like 20, 9, 12, 8, 8, 12, 15, 11, 1, 6. So like I have a lot of like mid-tier pickups from the board, with like Tapu Lele being my top tier pick. So I don't know. This team ended up pretty much how I draft a lot of my teams, which is like very wide. Like all 11 of these mons are bringable at any week, you know, week to week. So which I don't know, that's kind of like it's my comfort draft style. So just have 11 mons and be able to like pick and choose what I want to bring and when. Someday I'll draft like a really top heavy synergistic team that I can just like pretty much delete like the last 4 mons on my draft board once I draft them from my prep doc, and then just like run with the same, you know, 6 or 7 every week and just like click big buttons. But for now I just kind of, you know, it's been 3 seasons, or 14, 15, 2 seasons off, so I kind of went back into comfort mode and drafted mons that I felt like I would have fun using and thought were pretty good, you know, pickups for the value. So and my type chart, you can look at my type chart here. Type chart doesn't really matter that much, because I mean it really only matters what your weaknesses look like with the 6 that you bring week to week. But I mean, most notable is water. My only real water resist is Gyarados and then Appleton. Like those are the only 2 water resistances I have. So, and like if you don't see one or either of them at team preview, spamming water is free. So but I don't know, we'll see. I'll have to deal with that the consequences of that you know, week to week. And my fighting weakness, not really that worried about that on the board. I mean, between Lele and 2 ghost types, not really that worried about fighting. Is it effective overall? Sure, but there's no guarantee that I'm going to be bringing a ton of fighting weak mons week to week. So, and I feel like most teams are ground weak, so I'm just going to ignore that. So, and then also fairy week, which is, you know, fine, whatever. I don't know. That's fine. A lot of teams are also fairy weak just by like 1 or 2 mons. So not too concerned with the type chart. I just wanted a lot of type diversity. I didn't grab an ice, poison, or bug type. I had considered all of them at one point, but ultimately it didn't happen. I don't really think I'll be missing bug types that much, nor will I be missing poison types that much, unless I'm clicking Sludge Wave next to Iron Treads. Ice is a great offensive type to have, but there were no ice types at this, you know, over the course of the draft that I really wanted to grab, so I kind of just left it off the table. And then as far as like average stats go, I feel like, you know, my team definitely leans physically heavy, but mons with like Hoopa and Lele are kind of like my, and I guess Regieleki to a certain extent are my special offense. So I don't know. I think teams will definitely bring Intimidate into me, or like their, you know, Will-O-Wisps, their Charms, you know, Baby Doll Eyes, etc., just to, you know, reduce the power of my physical offense. But hopefully, you know, the fact that my first draft pick, Tapu Lele, kind of, well, maybe hopefully keep that in check. So I don't know. I think it's fun. I got a lot of mons that I'm pretty excited to use, and I think it'll be fun. And then, of course, you know, there's the division. I'm in the Bulu division, and somehow, I don't know why, but we have 6 out of 8 coaches with a terrain setter via ability. Like, it's how did this happen, man? How did we get here? That's insane. The only 2 coaches that don't have an ability, a mon with an ability that sets terrain, are Jordan and Poppin. Literally everybody else has a mon that that sets terrain via ability. The bigger mon, you know, like right next to the name on the left, is the first round pick mon, and then if that was a terrain setter, then there's no mon next to it. But if they did not have, if the first round pick was not a terrain setter, like Midbus had Victini as round 1, and then Indeedee was a second round pick, or like Vanilla Ice drafted Thwacky, I think, like in the second half of the draft and whatnot, and then LS drafted Bulu somewhere in the middle of the draft. But there's 6 coaches in this division that have a terrain setting ability, and also all 4 Tapus are in this division. This is truly insane. I don't think this just must be pure coincidence, because it's truly insane But I don't know. I think it'll be fun. It'll make for some terrain wars, vying for terrain, or maybe like one of us, with the Tapus, will skip the terrain and then run like telepathy, or we'll just fight for terrain for like the entirety of the season. So I don't know. Yeah, 5 of the 7 weeks are gonna be the terrain wars, which I think is pretty funny. I think it's gonna make for some interesting matches, because I imagine most of the teams that have access to the ability terrain setters are gonna bring them into each other, just so that you don't give like one coach doesn't just get free reign during a week for terrain. But who knows? I think it'll be fun. And my week 1 opponent is Poppin. I gotta go up against Follow Me Jirachi / Serene Grace Iron Head Spam. I don't really know what Jirachi's gonna do. It has a pretty big move pool with a lot of options, and considering it's 100 base stats across the board for each stat, I don't really know what to expect. I don't really know what he's gonna do. I don't know what his plan is. I don't know if he's gonna go fast or slow, maybe both. I don't know. It's gonna be fun to figure out, and I feel like Poppin can just like follow me set up in my face, and I'll probably just lose or get swept. I don't know. We'll see, but either way, it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So ultimately, Season 16, something to be said about drafting a team that you want to use, even if it's not optimal. I think, is my team like a good team? Looking at, the overall composition of the 11 Mons, it could be. It could be argued. I like the team, so therefore I think it's good. But I'm also realistic. I don't think it's a top tier team. I don't even necessarily think it's a high tier team. I think it's a B tier team. I think it's pretty good at having a lot of flexibility and options. I think I will win games, and I think I will lose games. But I think that's all part of the journey. So without further ado, welcome to Season 16, Journey Through the Hyperspace Hole. And I will see you in week 1. Peace!